Tonight, a father who assaulted a 15-year-old boy in a Port Augusta car park learns of his fate, and the Whyalla Footy League forced to pull out of an annual clash with its Spencer Golf rival.
This is Southern Cross News with Fraser Goldsworthy.
Good evening. A Port Augusta man who assaulted a 15-year-old boy in a local car park last year has been sentenced to 2 months behind bars. The 46-year-old father faced court today and was handed a 5-month jail term, which was partially suspended due to an early guilty plea.
A small win, but a win for the victim's family nonetheless.
It's not what I expected for him to get, but at least he got some downtime where he's not walking free.
The mother of the boy whose attack in a Port Augusta car park was captured on a video which went viral on social media was hoping for a more lengthy sentence.
I would have liked it to be the maximum, which would have been 3 years.
The accused sat emotionless in the courtroom as the judge handed down his verdict. A 5-month prison term with a partial suspension of 3 months. The defence had argued for a suspended sentence, saying their client was remorseful and had been attending counselling to identify how a reaction to the victim came from a history of no violence. Whilst Magistrate Oates agreed he thought he wouldn't reoffend, the seriousness of the incident meant home detention would not be appropriate in this case, and that such a decision may also reduce public confidence in the justice system. The parents of the accused wiped away tears as the judge handed out his sentence. Outside court, they were tight-lipped.
With the 2 months that he got while he's in prison, I'm hoping that he's thinking really hard that he has done the wrong thing.
Now this ordeal is over, this mother's focus is firmly on the rehabilitation of her son.
Now that this is all over, which I'm glad about it, I can now look out forward to my son to try and get him on the right track now to now start being safe back out in the community again.
Garth Burley, Southern Cross News.
There are reports Nyrstar has unexpectedly failed to make its first $37 million repayment towards its $600 million Port Pirie smelter redevelopment. The state government agreed to a $300 million financing arrangement deal under former Premier Jay Weatherill along with local member Jeff Brock. It's believed the failure to meet the repayment will also defer future payments at a cost of about $81 million until November next year. A lack of interest has forced the Whyalla Football League to pull out of its annual clash against the Spencer Golf. It's left the SGL bitterly disappointed, saying it'll have repercussions for the country championships and beyond.
Once a career highlight, the decline of combined footy in Whyalla was obvious last year. A weakened team full of juniors copped a 30-goal thrashing by the SGL, a situation the league deemed unacceptable this year.
We got all the coaches together and we asked them the basic question, folks, are we going to support this or are we not going to support it? And they all wanted to support it.
3 weeks out from the match and Whyalla still didn't have a coach, forcing the WFL to reluctantly pull the pin.
It's a great thing, it's good for the crowd, it's good entertainment, but we need to be competitive.
SGL President Les Prominence says the league is disappointed.
And we're about to announce our squads later this week for this game so that we can start undergoing our training sessions.
He also says it has a flow-on effect for this year's Northern Zone Country Championship squad.
This is one way that we can all view the good players of each association.
And there's doubt as to when it'll happen again. 2019 is the centenary year of the WFL, with the league keen to use the June long weekend for those celebrations. But Mr Velthausen says the league hasn't given up on the concept.
Clearly is the Whyalla issue, it clearly is, and we'll try and rectify it.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Police are asking anyone who spotted 2 men loitering in front of a house in Broken Hill's McCulloch Street yesterday to come forward. Officers were called to the home when residents heard 2 men talking in their front yard at around 3 o'clock in the morning. A large amount of blood was later discovered near the back door. Investigations are continuing. Jamestown Hospital has received a cash boost for a facility upgrade. The operating theatre is set to be refurbished over the next 2 months, while patient room upgrades and outdoor restorations have already begun.
It's at the heart of every hospital, and Jamestown Operating Theatre's set for a $400,000 makeover.
Health SA LHN have provided funding towards the theatre of around about $250,000.
Friends of the Jamestown Ambulance donated $100,000.
It'll improve working facilities for surgeons and nurses while ensuring patients receive a safe and quality surgical experience.
Waiting area is being upgraded. The theatre itself is being upgraded. There's a new scrub area for the surgeons themselves. Some new equipment, some new storage areas.
Jamestown Lions Club has also donated $7,000 to upgrade the lounge and waiting area. Wards 1 and 2 have already been renovated thanks to a generous $10,000 donation from various community groups.
Just about finished refurbishing those rooms now, and then going forward we'll look at doing some subsequent rooms.
Country Health SA is also providing funding to upgrade the outside appearance of the hospital, with painting set to begin this week.
Looking forward to having a beautiful looking hospital by the end of June. It will look amazing.
Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
Well, the Royal Flying Doctor Service continued its 90th anniversary celebrations at its Broken Hill base today. Staff members held a community barbecue in the town square, with their flight simulator catching many eyes.
People do appreciate what we do, and equally the staff value the outstanding contribution that the community makes to our ability to do what we do.
The Flying Doctor is one of the largest aeromedical services in the world, servicing an area of over 7 million square kilometres. Still to come tonight, holiday destinations in our region set to receive a free Wi-Fi service for tourists. That's next. 60 tourist destinations across the state are set to switch on a free Wi-Fi service. People will soon be able to have access to unlimited data for 1 hour a day using their mobile device in a bid to improve visitor experience.
Sharing photos online of your remote getaway is about to become a whole lot easier.
Mobile savvy, connected travellers, they're bold and they're adventurous. You know, if they know that they've got connectivity when they travel into the regions, they're likely to go further into the region.
Around 20 communities in the region will soon have access to the free Wi-Fi service at the hands of a partnership between Telstra and the state's Tourism Commission.
We're rolling out these sites to places like Burra, Clare, Moonta Bay, Port Broughton, Wallaroo, Port Lincoln, Whyalla, Port Augusta and Coffin Bay, to name a few.
It's easy to connect. Simply check the Wi-Fi settings on your device and select the hotspot option. Once connected, the user will receive 1 hour of unlimited data within range of this device.
50 to 100 metres, maybe a bit more in some sites, just depends on the location.
9 hotspots across the state, including Moonta Bay, have already been switched on for tourists to access. The other 51 sites are set to be rolled out over the coming months. Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
A local Port Lincoln brewery has taken inspiration from the sea for its latest creation. The unique stout is made with some of the region's famous oysters and will be available to local beer buffs very soon.
Combining beer and oysters might seem an odd combination, but it's a style of beer that's been around for centuries, and Beer Garden Brewing will be launching the new product at one of the largest beer festivals in Australia.
Launching the Angazi Coffin Bay Oyster Stout this week at the Gabs Festival in Melbourne. So that's the Great Australian Beer Spectacular.
The rich beverage has been crafted with a special local product.
A beer we've brewed with 40 dozen Coffin Bay oysters, so it's featuring both Angazi and Pacific oysters. So we're really glad to show off the produce of the region.
It took 3 tries to get the brew just right.
It really was a matter of how you brew it, how many oysters you have to put, per litre of beer, do you leave them in the shell, out of the shell, or, all those things. It's very much trial and error.
The local brewers have been wanting to launch the unique combination for quite some time.
This is a beer that I've sort of been thinking about since before we even opened the brewery, so really wanting to use the local ingredients.
While the stout has been launched especially for the Craft Beer Festival, locals can expect to try it out soon.
We're launching the Angazi down there, but we've bottled quite a few 640ml bottles as well, so they'll be launched within a few weeks.
Casey Trelaw, Southern Cross News.
The Broken Hill City Council says joining forces with other councils across the Far West could spell good times ahead for the city. The New South Wales government has allocated $20 million to help establish the scheme.
Joint organisations for councils in the Far West have been on the table for almost a year. But following a meeting in Sydney this week, it looks more like a reality.
The sort of collaboration and regionalism that we might be able to achieve is a very exciting project to work forward on.
The $20 million funding package will include updates to existing Western Road plans in each region, the employment of an executive officer and support staff, and planning support with New South Wales Public Works.
And then, of course, there's $5 million that's been announced, which will have a tourism and cultural development focus around the region.
Broken Hill would join Wentworth, Central Darling and Balranald as part of a South organisation. It would allow the four councils to discuss issues they all face and to develop plans and future strategies. Council resolved to be part of a joint organisation on the proviso of recurrent funding. The state government is yet to commit to that, with local councillors set to make a decision on if they should join.
We'll need to go back to council and just seek their agreement to wanting to proceed with the JR on that basis.
Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Broken Hill's fire stations will open their doors to the public on Saturday. Stations in the north and south will give locals a chance to tour the facilities, ask questions and check out all the equipment. The fire service will also be on the lookout for new recruits.
We're a little bit short for retained firefighters. So a retained firefighter is a part-time firefighter. You have your normal job, you have a pager. When we get an incident, you respond to the incident at the station, come in, they've got their own fire truck.
The open day starts at 10 o'clock. After the break, back to Plan A. Organisers of the Pitchy Ritchie Marathon respond to public outcry over plans to change the event. Details next. Organisers of the Pitchy Ritchie Marathon have thrown another curveball into preparations for this year's event, announcing the event will finish in Corn. The new decision comes after an announcement that this year's event would wind up in Wilmington due to safety concerns.
It's been at the same location for nearly 40 years, but over the last 2 weeks, the finish line of the Pitchy Ritchie Marathon has changed twice. This time, it's for certain.
We think we've come up with a very good plan so that the Pitchy Ritchie Marathon will go ahead this year and will be finishing in Corn.
The initial decision to move from Corn came after independent safety reports found it would have to close roads in order to keep competitors safe. Organisers thought closing the pass to Corn was overkill, so decided to move it to Wilmington.
Well, there was outcry, and that's acceptable, and I understand that. People probably came to realise that there was more sense of community ownership about the event than they might have realised previously.
The strong community outcry forced Flinders Ranges Council to find a solution.
The opportunity to run a train out to the 10.5k walk where there are big numbers of starters is a great opportunity because that showcases the railway, it showcases our area and it's something a bit different for people.
It means the organisers are shutting the pass. Organisers say that this decision doesn't cut out Wilmington from getting a slice of the pie.
There's a couple of things, maybe King of the Mountain, we're looking at a bike ride, so there's a couple of things we're going to develop for Wilmington.
Garth Burley, Southern Cross News.
A Port Lincoln business could hold the key to making use of feral carp removed from Australian waterways. The research from Curtin University is part of a national $5.5 million program on working out how to control the feral fish species.
It's a pest that's plagued Australia's waterways for years, and a special virus has been developed in the hopes of controlling the population.
If we do develop a strategy that controls or kills a lot of carp, what could we then do with that carp once we remove it from our waterways?
Sampi has been processing fish waste from tuna and kingfish farms for many years, turning it into fertiliser and feed, and it could potentially save millions of tonnes of carp from becoming landfill.
We got 10 tonnes of carp down to Port Lincoln and we put them through the Sampi process, looking at some end uses like animal feed or aquaculture feed ingredients or organic fertiliser.
As a standard hydrolysate, it came out perfectly.
So I could see it would be a very feasible thing to do here in Port Lincoln.
This is a sample of some of the organic fertiliser made from the trial, and researchers are now hoping the fishy waste can soon be turned into viable commercial products.
So the indications are good. We'll just do the testing of the product and then look at possible market opportunities.
Casey Trelaw, Southern Cross News.
Well, speaking of fish, here's this week's fishing tips.
Welcome to another week of Round the Gulf Fishing Tips. I can't wait to tell you this week. You know those yellowfin whiting and the yellow-tailed kingfish that we were talking about last week? They're actually just gone off the bite at the moment at the beach. But salmon are back. They're just about salmon, bull salmon, so plenty of those to be had. Take the kids fishing, they're a great way to go. King George whiting, the cold snap should bring them in, so I think the first quotas will be had this weekend. Be careful where you're going because the weather's a bit inclement, but just try around the creeks and you'll be all right.
G'day and welcome to this week's fishing tips from Port Augusta, Jewel of the North. Well, the winter schools are in, King George whiting are in. Some people are bagging out, other people having problems getting basically any at all. A lot of pufferfish hammering the baits there too. Also the squid are in good numbers at the moment, and there seems to be a lot of kingfish following them as well. So if you do have a big rod there, get a smaller squid, try it for a live bait and just be in about 3, 4, 5 feet of water. Around that, just along the shacks, the kingfish are schooling up and down along that area too. There's some flatter getting caught at night off the jetties and also some good catches of garfish too. That's all we have from the Jewel North, and that's over to Whyalla.
There's been some really good numbers of squid again down towards Mount Young, plenty of them, really good size, so now's the time to get in amongst those. There's the blue swimmer crabs have been a little bit slower this week. Water temperature is starting to drop, so the crabs are starting to push out in the deeper water. There is still a few good numbers to be caught further down south. The further you go and the deeper you go, the better result. North of Whyalla, there's been a few sprinkles of King George whiting, especially up in around the One Steel Walls. Some nice sized fish around there, and also some really good numbers of garfish in the same grounds. For land-based around Whyalla, again a few salmon schools poking around the Point Lowly Lighthouse. Just walk along the rocks, guys, have a flick with some lures, and down along the foreshore there's been a handful of silver whiting coming in.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. Well, locally the whiting have been not too bad in the bay. In the proper there have been some whiting up along the north shore for squid. There have been some yellowfin whiting along the town foreshore, and there's been some nice flathead caught out in the national park. Moving over to Coffin Bay, there's been some nice whiting, salmon trout and garfish caught right in the bay system. And moving out wide of Sir Isaac's, there have been some nanagai, a few snapper and some school sharks when the weather permits. The surf beaches down along the Almontra and Gunya stretch have been yielding some nice salmon, and there has been some good fish up around that 3 kilo mark. Well, that's all for Fishing Tips this week. We'll see you again next week with more tips.
Stay with us after the break. We'll have all the local weather details, and Amy, a change could be on the way as we head into the weekend.
Well, after some beautiful autumn days, Fraser, it's looking like a chance of showers around the region. All the details are up next. Welcome back. It was another pleasant day around most districts, with maximums sitting in the mid to high teens. Port Augusta, a sunny day there, a top of 19. Some cloudy skies in Port Lincoln and 18, while Whyalla reached a top of 17. Taking a look at the satellite now, and a front is causing the odd light shower on the southern coast. Meanwhile, skies are generally clearer further north with dry winds. If you're spending some time on the waters tomorrow, southwesterly winds will pick up to 15 knots with seas reaching 1 metre. The sun will rise at 7:05, while sunset is at 5:25. Looking at tomorrow's forecast, and maximums will reach the high teens in most areas, but a change is on the way with possible showers and cloudy skies. Port Augusta and Whyalla will reach 19, 20 the top in Port Lincoln. It's likely to be a rainy start into next week in Port Lincoln with tops of 19. Showers will clear in Cleve late into the weekend, while at Woodnar maximums will hit the low 20s on Sunday and Monday. Conditions will fine up in Whyalla by Sunday. Meanwhile, Port Augusta can expect a mostly sunny 20 on Monday. After a fine Sunday in Kadina, possible showers early in the week with temperatures reaching 19. The sun will return in Port Perry by next week with a top of 18, and while it'll continue to be slightly cooler in Clare, reaching 15 on Monday. Meanwhile, the sun will be shining in Broken Hill despite the cooler temperatures. So Fraser, hopefully we'll all have a chance to soak up some sunshine as the weekend approaches.
Thanks, Amy. And that's all from the newsroom for now. Thanks for your company. Good night.